Have you ever stood in the middle of a radiant, sunlit day while an ash-gray blizzard raged within your chest? Have you stepped out of bed with a ribcage heavy with anxiety about the future, a vague sense of disappointment with the present, and a smoldering resentment because someone dared to look down on you? You strive to control everything around you. Your boss must acknowledge your competence. Your partner must behave according to your will. Traffic must not jam, and public opinion has no right to judge what you are doing. Yet, the harder you try to grip it all, the more it slips through your fingers. You plunge into a state of powerlessness, helplessness, and exhaustion. This is no ordinary physical fatigue. Stoic philosophy calls it soul-tired. You are exhausted, not because this life is too harsh, but because you are willingly carrying the weight of the entire world upon your shoulders. You are ceaselessly spending your scarce flame of energy to heat homes that do not belong to you, striving to alter events that were never meant to be under your command. More than 2,000 years ago, the greatest Stoic sages saw right through this pain. They recognized an ultimate truth. You do not need to control the entire world. You only need to master yourself. True power does not lie in your ability to steer the storm outside, but in the fact that the storm cannot find a single crack to breach and ravage the fortress of your mind. In the next moment, we will not speak of dry academic dogmas. Together, we will dissect the illusions of control, draw a steel boundary for our personal energy, and forge an invulnerable mental fortitude against every twist of fate. Cast aside all the distractions of that noisy world out there and focus your mind entirely upon this space, because the strongest, most self-governed version of you is waiting to be awakened. Part 1. The Trap of Control and the Pain of Soul Fatigue. Let us begin with a brutal truth. Most of the suffering, anxiety, and resentment in your life are born from an illusion called total control. We live in an era where society relentlessly implants the thought into our minds that, as long as you try hard enough, you can achieve any result. As long as you work diligently, you can force the world to operate exactly as you wish. We are obsessed with external outcomes. We want to control what others think of us. We want to control the success or failure of a project, and we want to control the behavior of those around us. But how does reality actually work? You prepare meticulously for a job interview, yet the final hiring decision rests with a manager you have never even met. You communicate with absolute sincerity and kindness in a relationship, but you cannot force the other person to respond with a matching loyalty. You care for your health with the most scientific diet, yet you still cannot completely eliminate the risk of autoimmune diseases or sudden accidents. When reality fails to align with your expectations, we fly into a rage, we fall into despair, we curse fate and blame external circumstances. But every single time you do that, you transform yourself into a pathetic victim. You are implicitly declaring to the universe, "My peace depends on your actions. I can only be happy when this world treats me well." The wise Seneca once penned a profound statement in his letters to his friend Lucilius. "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Your pain does not stem from the event itself, but from your resistance to reality. You wish the rain would not fall when you have urgent business out on the street. Yet the rain harbors no malice toward you, it simply falls in obedience to the laws of nature. Your frantic resistance does not make the dark clouds vanish, it only leaves you drenched in helpless fury. When you attempt to control what lies beyond your grasp, your mental energy is scattered in 1,000 different directions. You are like someone trying to shield 10 candles with their bare hands against a fierce storm. You run frantically from one candle to the next, your breath shallow and rapid, your heart pounding wildly. You are fearful, you are panicked, and ultimately, when the storm sweeps through, every single candle is extinguished, while you collapse in sheer exhaustion. Stoic philosophy points out that the flame of your inner strength is a finite resource, not an endlessly refilled spring. If you spend all your finest energy before noon simply raging at a reckless driver, worrying over a critical email from a colleague, or explaining a personal decision to people who completely fail to understand you, you will have nothing left for the grand goals of your life. You are willingly surrendering your kingdom to emotional invaders. It is time to put an end to this meaningless war. You cannot quiet the waves of the ocean, but you can certainly learn how to surf. You cannot force the entire world to remain silent, but you can utterly master the tranquility within your own soul. That self-governance begins with understanding a sacred boundary drawn by Epictetus. Part 2. The Stoic Map, the Supreme Sovereignty of the Mind. The philosopher Epictetus, who began life in the status of a chained slave in Rome, opened his classic book, Enchiridion, the Stoic Manual, with a fierce declaration: to gain freedom and happiness, you need to grasp this fundamental truth. Some things in life are under your control, and other things are not. This is not a complex concept, but it is one of the hardest lessons to master in a human life. It is called the dichotomy of control. Let us look at the map of your life through the Stoic lens. Things that are not under your control include the opinions, judgments, and behavior of other people. The final outcome of the efforts you put forth, your physical body, aging, illness, death, reputation, social status, and economic fluctuations. The past that has already happened and the future that has yet to arrive. The only things entirely under your control include your thoughts and your interpretations of events, your desires, life values, and personal goals, your responses, attitude, and proactive actions in the present moment, your moderation, self-discipline, and self-respect. Reflect deeply on this list. When you are suffering, anxious, or frustrated, examine which territory you are stepping into. Are you trying to control something in the first list? When someone insults you, their behavior is something you cannot control. But the way you interpret that insult within your mind belongs entirely to you. Epictetus taught that a person cannot harm you unless you willingly cooperate with them. You are only truly harmed when you believe you are being harmed. If a person hurls a stone at a giant cliff, does the cliff get angry? No. It simply stands still, steadfast, and lets the stone drop to the ground. You too must become that cliff before all the opinions of this world. Listen to the story of Epictetus's own life. While he was a slave, a brutal master used an iron rod to twist his leg tightly to test his endurance. Epictetus did not scream, did not cry out begging for mercy, nor did he curse his master. He simply looked straight into the eyes of his tormentor and calmly said, "You are going to break my leg." When the leg bone snapped with a dry crack, Epictetus retained that extraordinary calm upon his face and gently said, "Did I not tell you that you would break it?" How can a human being attain such an invulnerable realm in the face of excruciating physical pain? Because Epictetus deeply understood one thing, that master could own his body, could chain and snap his leg bones. But Epictetus's free will, virtue, and soul belonged forever to his own realm of governance. No tyrant, no iron chain could step across that sacred boundary to touch his inner peace unless he opened the door himself to permit it. If a slave with a broken leg could smile in the face of adversity, then you, a free human being in the modern world, what right do you have to let a colleague's frown, a stranger's criticism on social media, or a delayed flight ruin your entire day? When you understand the dichotomy of control, you will no longer live reactively. You will stop trying to change the entire world. You will pour all your precious resources into mastering yourself. But how can we practice this in everyday life as practically as possible, avoiding turning philosophy into empty theories? Let us step into the next chapter to equip ourselves with 3 Stoic practical weapons to liberate the mind from its dependence on the external world. Part 3. 3 Stoic practice weapons to liberate faith. The wise Seneca once advised, "Act, do not just speak." Stoic philosophy is a discipline of daily practice, much like an athlete training in the gym every afternoon to prepare for the actual match in the arena. To train your capacity for self-mastery, you must master the following 3 ultimate practical weapons. The first weapon, the control sort tool. Whenever you feel tension, anxiety, or pressure rising within your chest, stop immediately, grab a sheet of paper, and perform this exercise. Draw a straight line dividing the paper into 2 columns. The left column, write, "My actions." This is what truly belongs under your control in the present situation. The right column, write, "The final outcome." This is what lies beyond your grasp, depending on the cooperation of the universe and those around you. For example, you are preparing to launch a new product for your business. Your actions: thoroughly research the market, optimize product quality, write honest advertising content, and complete tasks on schedule. The final outcome: whether sales hit the target or not, whether customer feedback is praise or criticism, whether competitors release a similar product. An ordinary person places all of their happiness and self-worth into the right-hand column. If sales fall short of expectations, they collapse, viewing themselves as a failure. A true Stoic, however, does the exact opposite. They pour 100% of their focus, dedication, and effort into executing the left-hand column as best as possible. Once the arrow has left the bow, the Stoic archer calmly lets go of all anxiety over whether the arrow hits the bullseye or not, because they know that an unexpected headwind can blow the arrow off course. That is the work of fate. Their value lies in having pulled the bowstring taut and aimed as perfectly as possible. Ask yourself, today, have you thoroughly completed your portion of the left-hand column? If the answer is yes, smile and let the universe handle the rest. The second weapon, the plain description technique. Marcus Aurelius had a uniquely distinctive habit in his personal journal. He would proactively strip away all grandiose or frightening adjectives from objects and events to view them in their barest form. For instance, he described his precious Tyrian purple imperial cloak merely as sheep's wool dyed with the blood of sea snails. He described the expensive game meat at a royal banquet merely as the corpse of a pig or a bird. Why would the supreme emperor of Rome do such a thing? Because he understood that the human mind is easily deceived by prejudices and exaggerated interpretations. When someone disrespects you, they say, "You are useless and incompetent." If you accept those exact words at face value, you will be devastated. However, when you apply the plain description technique, you dissect this event like an objective camera, the objective truth. There is a person emitting sounds from their vocal cords that form Vietnamese words. Your subjective interpretation: they are humiliating me, I must fly into a rage. Discard the second part. The naked truth is simply, they hold a personal perspective based on their narrow lens. That perspective possesses no power to change the blood flowing in your veins, nor can it alter your actual character and competence. When you view the world through the eyes of plain description, all malicious gossip instantly loses its magic spell. The third weapon, utilizing the reserve clause. When planning for any goal in life, always append a philosophical reserve phrase, fate permitting, or barring any unforeseen obstacles. Instead of saying, I will successfully sign this contract tomorrow. Tell yourself, I will prepare and present the contract signing proposal in the best possible way tomorrow, provided no unexpected event intervenes. This reserve clause is not a sign of timidity or a lack of confidence. On the contrary, it is the pinnacle of wisdom and realism. It keeps your will resolute in action, while simultaneously preparing your psychology for life's unexpected twists. If your partner has an accident tomorrow and the meeting is cancelled, you will not fall into a state of outrage and collapse. You will simply smile and tell yourself, fate did not permit that to happen today. Let us focus on our next task. When you equip yourself with these three weapons, you have begun building the first defense walls for your mind. Yet the actual daily battle does not take place in a quiet laboratory. It occurs right in the middle of tense conversations, before the cold alarm clocks in the morning, and amid the relentless stimuli of modern life. How do we stand guard at the gate of our mind every single second? Let us move on to the fourth way, the art of guarding the gateway of the mind and governing mental reactions. Part 4. Defending the fortress of the mind, the art of governing mental reactions. Imagine your mind as an ancient and exceptionally magnificent citadel. This fortress has a single grand gate, and you are the sentry standing at that very entrance. What is the supreme duty of a sentry? It is to meticulously inspect everything seeking entry into the citadel, permit only what is safe and useful to pass through, and resolutely block every hazard right at the gate. Yet, most people in modern society today leave that gate abandoned. We allow everything to flood freely into our minds uncontrolled. An accidental judgment from a stranger on social media sneaks in and strips away your confidence. The sensationalized, toxic news about accidents and economic crises sneaks in and sows lingering anxiety. A colleague's unpleasant attitude sneaks in and kindles a rage that ruins your entire workday. You allow all the emotional garbage of the external world to overrun your kingdom, and then you sit and cry, wondering why you always feel exhausted and insecure. Stoic philosophy teaches us a vital mental training concept called prosoche, continuous attention. It is the state of stoic mindfulness, keeping the mind awake at all times to monitor every impression, thought, and emotion the moment they appear at the boundary of perception. Epictetus compared this to a goldsmith testing the authenticity of a gold coin. They never accept it merely by the initial ring of the coin. They weigh, measure, and test it with fire thoroughly before agreeing to spend it. Your mind must do the same with its thoughts. When a negative impression appears, such as a fear of being laid off or failing, you must not assent to it immediately. Hold it at the gate and inspect it with reason. Modern neuroscience and Stoic philosophy share a fascinating intersection. Both agree that we do not need to control the body's primary physiological response. When there is a sudden loud noise, you startle, your heart beats fast, your face turns pale. When someone insults you, a surge of burning heat rises up your throat. Those are instinctive, unconditioned responses of the sympathetic nervous system designed to protect the body. The Stoics called them impressions, initial perceptions. They do not ask you to be an insentient log devoid of emotion. True Stoic practice begins at the next step. When the primary physiological response appears, do you assent to continue nourishing it with stories spun inside your head or not? Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who survived the brutal Nazi concentration camps through his Stoic spirit, wrote an immortal line, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. That space is where Stoic wisdom reigns." When anger or fear appears at the gate, take a deep breath, count backward from 3 to 1, and create a minimum pause of 2 seconds. That pause is your protective shield. In those 2 seconds, Ask yourself a piercing question. Does this thought serve virtue and the person I choose to become? If the answer is no, open your palm and release it, just like letting a bird fly out of your hand. Do not fight it. Do not suppress it. Simply refuse to assent to it and direct your focus back to action in the present moment. Look at the life of Emperor Marcus Aurelius to see this art of mind gatekeeping executed at its grandest level. He ruled the entire vast Roman Empire, but his life was a sequence of consecutive adversities. He had to battle the Antonine Plague that claimed the lives of millions of citizens, face the rebellious betrayal of his closest general, Avidius Cassius, and witness the passing of 8 beloved children while they were still very young. Every evening, inside a cold military tent on the Danube frontier, beneath the dim oil lamp, the great emperor sat writing his journal to himself. He did not write to lament the injustice of fate, nor did he write to curse his enemies. He wrote to remind himself to stand firm in the duty of a human being. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Things external cannot touch the soul. They stand still and quiet out there. Chaos arises only from the interpretations within." He chose to accept all the twists of fate with a calm attitude, loving his destiny, a spirit later called in philosophy amor fati, love of fate. Protecting the gate of the mind helps you maintain peace in ordinary situations. Yet life does not only consist of gentle brushes. There will be times when true storms arrive, tragedy strikes, loss occurs, and the harshest trials test the limits of your endurance. How do we prepare for those major battles so we are never brought down? Let us step into the fifth way, the section on forging the most ironclad mental fortitude of Stoic philosophy, the method of training through adversity and willingly stepping into the dark. Part 5. Crucible of Strength, the method for forging ironclad fortitude. Society today relentlessly teaches us an exceedingly soft mindset. Seek maximal comfort, stay away from any inconvenience, and pray for an easy life. Yet the Stoics knew that continuous comfort is a sweet trap that turns you into a fragile creature before the impacts of reality. A person who lives solely in a warm, air-conditioned room will easily collapse from a cold on the very first rainy day. Therefore, they did not pray for a lighter burden. They trained to forge stronger shoulders. They did not wait for adversity to strike before learning how to fight back. They proactively rehearsed adversity every single day in both thought and action. To train an ironclad mental fortitude, you must practice these 2 ultimate Stoic exercises. The first exercise, premeditatio malorum, negative visualization. Every day, the world advises you to think positively, to visualize brilliant success in order to attract it. But the Stoics chose to look straight into the dark. Every morning, before stepping out the door, spend exactly 2 minutes visualizing all the worst-case scenarios that could happen during the day. Visualize your boss flying into a rage and criticizing your project. Visualize your car suddenly breaking down in the middle of the highway. Visualize a close friend betraying your trust, and even confront the reality that today might be the last day you breathe on this earth. It sounds gloomy, right? But the purpose of this exercise is not for you to live in fear and anxiety. Its purpose is to completely neutralize the power of surprise. When you have proactively experienced the worst-case scenario within your imagination, reality will no longer possess the capacity to shock or panic you. When the event occurs, you will not ask, "Why me?" You will smile calmly and say, "I have been waiting for you since this morning. Let us see how I handle you." The second exercise, voluntary discomfort. The philosopher Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in the Roman Empire at the time, regularly practiced a rigorous monthly ritual. He would set aside a few days to wear the roughest cloaks, eat the most meager meals of the impoverished class, sleep right on the cold, hard ground, and ask himself a question: is this the worst circumstance that I have always feared? By voluntarily abandoning material comforts for a brief period, Seneca liberated himself from his dependence on them. He no longer feared losing wealth or status, because he knew that even in the most impoverished conditions, his virtue and peace remained completely intact. Practice voluntary discomfort right in your everyday life through small daily actions. Try leaving your phone at home and taking a 10-minute quiet walk alone. Try turning off the air conditioning and enduring the heat for an hour of work. Try taking an ice-cold shower in the morning to train your body's submission to your will. When you voluntarily step into the dark zone of inconvenience, you are training your mind with a piercing message: I am stronger than my circumstances. My happiness does not depend on warm blankets or luxurious meals. That fortitude will transform your silence into a supreme power. It makes those who seek to offend you hesitate, because they realize they are facing a human being who cannot be broken by ordinary psychological attacks. When you have forged a steely spirit through the crucibles of adversity, you will realize a miraculous transformation within yourself. You no longer yearn to control the outer world. You enter a state of perfect self-mastery that Stoic philosophy calls the inner citadel. Reborn within, the inner citadel emperor, Marcus Aurelius, closed his reflections with a self-examining question that has awakened the hearts of countless generations of human beings. Each of us loves ourselves more than all other people, but why do we value the opinions of others more than our own self-assessment? That is the most bitter truth of life. We spend our whole lives searching for recognition and approval from those around us, people who are themselves struggling, fearful, and full of mental limitations just like us. Yet today, this journey of psychological awakening must conclude with a definitive declaration of your own. Remember this ultimate truth: you do not need to control the entire world. You only need to master yourself. You cannot force your manager to always be fair, but you can thoroughly work with the utmost integrity of your own. You cannot compel the world to stop judging or misunderstanding you, but you possess the right to refuse to spend even a single second explaining, defending, or proving your worth before them. You cannot prevent adversities, injuries, or death from knocking on the door of your life, but you entirely hold the right to choose to walk through them with your head held high, calm, courageous, and proud. Construct an impenetrable inner citadel right inside your soul today. Lay the first bricks from daily self-discipline, from strictly guarding your thoughts, and from courageously letting go of outcomes that were never yours to begin with. Once that fortress is complete, you will stand tall like a lighthouse amid a stormy ocean. The waves of adversity, of gossip or contempt may howl all around, yet they cannot extinguish your flame. They merely prove the indestructible strength of that lighthouse. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Perform every act of your life as though it were the very last act you will ever do." Your time on this earth is a scarce resource, slipping away second by second, never to return. Do not waste another single moment living like a defendant standing before the court of public opinion. Confidently take up the pen and write the most brilliant chapter of your own life. If you are truly ready to commit to walking the path of fortitude, calm, and ultimate daily self-mastery, leave your spiritual mark in the comment section with the phrase, "I choose to master myself." That is not merely a sentence written for amusement. It is a piercing declaration opening the era of your own invulnerability. Thank you for dedicating this precious moment to reflecting deeply with me today. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next chronicles of forging steely inner strength. Step out there, face life with the gaze of a stoic warrior, calm, steadfast, self-governed, and never bowing your head to make excuses.